Holy.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pat Outdoors. Hope you're having a great weekend. It looks like we already got all the parts we need to finally wrap up the MX650 mini Enduro project. I just got my Alter Ego 192 mil or 195 millimeter front rotor from Keaton Scarlett a couple days ago, and I also got my dual piston front brake caliper for a pit bike from Amazon. So we're gonna go over all the parts that came in and what else we gotta do to finally wrap this thing up today. Starting off with the front brake rotor that we're gonna be using. This is his new RSF rotor. So much larger than the 160 mil mountain bike style front rotors that we were planning on using previously. It's also a lot thicker. I think this is like 3.5 mil versus 2 mil. And this is the front brake caliper that I'm using, dual piston. I think this is designed for like an SSR pit bike. It's got a much heavier duty brake lever and stainless steel brake hose. It came pre-assembled. So I'm surprised all this came for less than, I think it was like $35. I'll leave a link in the description where I got these items that I'm going to be using today, but the brake caliper actually came with an extra set of brake pads, so that's kind of nice. Really hoping that this lines up well with this. Let's get started. So the rotor actually measures out to be 195 millimeter. It's awesome. Just to show you a side-by-side comparison between the stock 140 millimeter, it's definitely a big difference. It's actually pretty close to the rotor size on my KLX, which is I think 215 or something like that. I'm excited to try this on. Here's what the rotor looks like installed on the front wheel. The overall diameter looks to be about right when I have the holes lined up for the brake caliper mount, so pretty happy about that. Now I just got to figure out my spacing situation for the caliper mount. There seems to be about a 1/3 inch gap between the caliper bracket and the mounts on the shocks, but that should be pretty simple to figure out. It's just a matter of using the right measurement spacers and hardware. So we should be able to get this done today. The new brake lever for the front brake's been installed. You can definitely tell a huge quality difference over the stock brake lever that's made out of plastic for the rear stock cable brake. I may eventually change that to hydraulic as well, but the front brake is more important, so that's where we decided to put the focus on first. Now that we're able to put that stuff back together, we're also able to reinstall the JFG Racing hand guards for additional hand protection when I'm riding this thing in the woods. And it's also serving a additional purpose, this shield right here that's not on the left side. This is actually designed to protect the brake master cylinder and reservoir, like most motorcycles should have that, or dirt bikes. So one step closer to being a real motorcycle. Now it's time to mount the front brake caliper onto the shock mounts. I actually just got back from the hardware store, and the solution I'm going with are these M8 by 1.25 40mm bolts. The 40mm portion is everything below the head, which should be long enough for what we're doing here. And then to fill in that 1/4" gap between the shock mount and the caliper bracket, I'm just gonna use enough of these 5/16 washers, which fit nice and snug on these M8 bolts. Let's wrap this up. I ended up using 5 washers for each of the caliper mount bolts to get everything to line up perfectly. And now there's even clearance on both sides of the rotor, so I'm able to spin the wheel freely without any drag on the rotor. So I'm pretty happy with how everything fit. I'm glad I did not have to modify anything, do any sort of grinding or whatever. Now I just have to clean things up, maybe tie the brake hose over here and hide a lot of this extra cable or brake hose behind the white panel just to clean things up. So let's button it up. Feels good so far. Fork feels pretty good. Brakes feel pretty strong. Holy shit, that is amazing. I can't believe this thing just did that. Like it's nothing. Holy, that's awesome. Back here. Freaking awesome. All right, I gotta admit, this little bike is plenty of fun. It's not that fast. It's nowhere close to as fast as my black bike, but it does exactly what I intended it to do, which is ride off-road, climb some hills. It's got plenty of grip on the dirt, the grass, some wet leaves. I didn't have any sort of understeering issues. The front brake is plenty. I don't think I'm gonna need any more than that at all. It is very easy to modulate since it's hydraulic. I might put the same brake setup on my street bike since that thing needs more braking than this thing really, because that thing goes almost 50 miles an hour. But really happy with the fork. It's pretty comfortable ride. It takes the hit pretty well. It doesn't clunk like the stock fork. So shout out to Alter Ego. Pretty happy with the fork so far. We'll see how it holds up when I actually take this thing on some trails, but my little ride around my complex probably got some neighbors upset, but I had fun ripping this thing. I think I am still gonna swap out my motor sprocket to a 9-tooth just to get a little bit more torque out of this thing, because I want it to have plenty of climbing power for the hills, for the trails that I'm planning on taking it to. I'm not really looking for top speed on this thing. I don't even care if it just goes 25 after that sprocket, but as long as it has plenty of climbing power, since that's what we're doing with this thing, I am gonna be happy. If you found today's video helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you wanna keep up with some of my projects, such as this mini Enduro build, my street bike, my KLX, or whatever, consider subscribing to my channel. But this is gonna be it for today. Thank you for watching.